Right. Good morning, everyone, again, and welcome to our BAE Systems Theatre. There are still some seats that are empty over here. Anna, why don't you go and sit next to General Lay in my seat, because you won't see as much from where you're sitting. If my wife was here, she'd say if you can't see me, it'd be a good start. But yeah, so General Lay would be much more comfortable sitting next to you than me, and I'll be very happy to sit there. I'd like to, look, everybody here is important. So as you know, traditionally they go through a list of the usual suspects, the VIPs and the like. The most important people that are here are you who are the veterans, you who are the athletes, the families who love and support you. I recognise Gwen, Cherne, who is one of those, and a contemporary widow. But our Chief of Defence, General Angus Campbell, is here, our Chief of Army, General Rick Burr. There are many senior military representatives here. General Peter Lay, the Chairman, of course, of Invictus Games and former Chief of Army himself. Our Minister, again, Darren Chester, welcome to the Australian War Memorial. But welcome to all of you, and I include in that those representatives of the companies that have chosen to very actively support and invest in the Invictus Games. I won't repeat what I said outside about the Australian War Memorial. Many of you would know, but some of you perhaps don't, but it's always worth being reminded. What's important in life is that we all know our story, that we're reminded of what it is in which we believe, that we are reminded from where we came, who gave us who we have and made us who we are, that we have a sense as Australians and human beings of where we want to go. This place has its origins in the First World War. At Pozières, France, Charles Bean, the official war correspondent, was witness to 23,000 Australian casualties in 6 weeks, 6,800 dead, 5 Victoria Crosses. An mortally wounded Australian asked him, "Will they remember me in Australia?" And from there he subsequently conceived and resolved at its end he'd build this, the finest memorial and museum to these men of the Australian Imperial Force and the nurses. Over 23 years he'd write and edit the 12 volumes of the official history. And when he was writing that official history, he came back to an event that happened on the 24th of August 1916. His cousin, Second Lieutenant Lionel Leo Butler, had been killed at Mokay Farm the day before. And Bean wrote that night of the 24th in his diary, "As we placed his coffin in the ground, 6 more or less close friends standing nearby, a labourer leaning on his scythe and a woman dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. He said, I couldn't help but feel if it was all worthwhile. Was there anything, he asked, in this war or any other that could possibly justify such sacrifices?" And years later, when he's writing the official history, he's looking at that diary entry, and he asked himself a very important question. What, he said, was so special about the Australians? And he answered it thus. The answer, he said, lay in the mettle of the men themselves, to be the kind of man that would give way when his mates were trusting to his firmness, to live the rest of his life haunted by the knowledge that he lacked the grit to carry it through. This was the prospect with which these men could not live. Life, he said, was very dear, but life was not worth living unless they could be true to their ideal of being Australian. And that's what this is all about, what this place is all about. It's about that spirit that binds us together as Australians, that no matter what happens, as Sergeant S, the SAS sergeant, reflecting on the Battle of Tizoc, in which part of the Shah Wali Kot campaign. He said to fail would be worse than death. To let down your mates in combat, he said, would be worse than death. He said, yeah, that's the essence, you don't let your mates down. And that is the essence. That's what the Games is all about. It's about not letting one another down. It's about us as civilians, to the extent that we're able to say to all of you, we thank you, we are proud of you, and we won't let you down. And in terms of Invictus, as you know, William Henley's poem from 1875, what you have experienced as young Australians wearing our uniform and the consequences that it's had for you and the impact it's had upon you, as you know, goes back to Pozieres, Moke Farm and everything in between. And you know, I had a bit of a disagreement with some of the Invictus people about the banner out the front, because I wanted to have it say, under Gary, I wanted it to say, I am still me. After the fall of Singapore in 1942, SS Vinabrook embarked, or just before it, with 65 nurses on board. Strafed and sunk by Japanese fighters. 22 nurses made it to Raji Beach on Banker Island, 21 were murdered. But one of the nurses who survived, who ended up as a POW, was a woman called Pat Gunther. She wrote to her family in 1944. She said this, "Dear family, please don't worry about me. I enlisted of my own free will, knowing I could be going into a war zone. We nurses have been interred with a lot of other women. We've always managed to stay together. I have not been raped, bashed or tortured. If I die, I will die due to malnutrition or malaria. I am still me. All my love, Pat." And Gary and all of you, different experiences, but you are still you. You are unconquered. You are masters of your fate and captains of your soul. A new interpretation and representation of the poem has been done, and it's my humble privilege to introduce it to you.
Out of the night that covers me,
black as a pit from pole to pole.
I thank where the gods may be,
for my unconquerable soul.
In the fell clutch of circumstance. I'm not crying aloud!
under the bludgeonings of chance.
My head is bloody, but I'm bowed.
Beyond this place of wrath and tears
looms but the horror of the shade.
And yet, the menace of the years.
Find and shall find me, unafraid.
It matters not how straight the gate.
How charged with punishments, the scroll.
I am the master of my fate!
I am the captain of my soul.
I am the captain of my soul.
I am the captain of my soul.
Patrick Kidd, CEO.
It's the first time I've seen that video, actually, which is better than I thought it could possibly be. It's such an important poem, it's such an important set of words. For those of us who are in the team, it drives us each and every day, and I think the very ending of it, the idea of unconquered, is exactly what the whole thing is about. It's about the fact that the individuals that participate in these games, who use sport as a vehicle to push themselves forward, refuse to be defined by their injuries, and they are unconquered in what they do. So it's, I think, a brilliant piece of work, Tim and your team. So thanks very much indeed for letting that out. So today that was launched for the first time. It'll be very much the sort of the message that we use as we sort of now find our way into the last 100 days towards the Games, but I think a really powerful piece of work. So this is an incredibly exciting day for me and for our team. I look at everybody in this room, and you are part of our family. You are the people that have helped us get from where we were 3 years ago to where we are today, 100 days' time, when the opening ceremony will take place at the Opera House forecourt. You know, this is an amazing thing. And what we see in this room are a combination of people from government, from corporate partners who have dug really deep to help fund effectively what has to be funded, and our communications partners, the not-for-profit sector, who help us to communicate a message. And so when I look at you all, I just see one collective family who are aligned around a common purpose. And the common purpose is very much around supporting those people who've served in the military and their families that go with them. It's about celebrating ability over disability. And it's about recognising the power of sport, its ability to encourage people to reach out, be involved in something, and then connect with other people. And that fundamentally is what these games is all about. So you are all part of this journey that we go forward with, and without your support, we would not be able to be where we are. So I'm hugely grateful. I'm really excited just to see you all in the same room together, because it's amazing to see how far we've come. Dr. Nelson, I mean, the hospitality that you and your team have put on to help us do this thing today is just brilliant. So thank you very much indeed. And as ever, your words always make you think. So I'm really grateful for the personal energy that you put into supporting us over the last sort of couple of years, but also just for this very special moment. For all the other esteemed people in the room, it's great to see you here. Minister, fantastic. Thank you very much for coming today. Chief of Defence Force, great to see you. Congratulations on your promotion. And the Chief of Army, brilliant to see you also. But also all of the other individuals that are here, the team, who really are the people who should be celebrated for what they've achieved, having gone through that selection process. And I'll just take the time just to read out the members of the team. Jamie Tanner, supported by his wife, Lisa Kwok. Chris Pittman, Rob Saunders, Tiffany White, Jessie Costello, Gary Robinson and Katrina. Ben Farinazzo, Bridget Baker, you know, brilliant and great to see you here. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us. But really, you know, you are the heart and soul of what this thing is about. So we're always so excited to see what you're going to achieve when the games take place later in the year. Our partners. So we've got a fantastic collection of partners who've been with us for such a long time now. So the founding partners, that is the government. It's New South Wales State Government. It's New South Wales clubs, it's the RSL New South Wales, it's Legacy and it's Deloitte. And all these organisations came on board a very long time ago to help us get to this place that we're at today. So I'm, as ever, always hugely grateful for the support we receive from you. It's the communications partners. So we try to lift up and amplify our messaging through organising and through establishing partnerships with people who have reach across our nation. And they're not organisations necessarily that sit in the veteran space, they're broader than that. So we have a brilliant partnership with Beyond Blue, the Duke of Edinburgh Awards Scheme. We've also got here representatives from the ex-service community. So we have the RSL New South Wales, we've got Soldier On here, I think we've got Mates for Mates. And so what we have is this great collection of people who will help us to communicate a message about what these games stand for, because it's much more than just the veteran community. These games have significance and will inspire the whole nation, not just a small part of the nation, and that's the opportunity that we have. And then we have the commercial partners. You know, you're all here, you're all fantastic. You've given us so much support as we go forward. Jaguar Land Rover, who you'll hear from a little bit later on, but without you, these games in the macro sense wouldn't be occurring at all. So, you know, your role as a presenting partner for the Games is absolutely fundamental in terms of where we go to. I'm also delighted to welcome some new partners here today as well. So I'll just call them out. University of New South Wales, Canberra. So Professor Michael Frater have just come on board as a premier partner, which is absolutely amazing and brilliant. And I think what that says is not only about how important UNSW is in terms of the fabric of the Defence Force, but also it explains and helps to raise up the importance of education in the transition process of our people who leave the Defence Forces. They're such an important part of this. So education really must be a key part as we go forward. The Royal Australian Mint, so Ross McDermott, who's the CEO, is here today, I hope, who do the most amazing work, the most amazing artistry, the most amazing people doing these incredible sort of medals, creating these amazing medals. So it's great to have you on board as a partner as well. Fidelity International with Andrew Mellor and Michelle Harris, and also Goodman, who've also come on board as supporters. So it's really great to join you, or to have you join us as a part of the team. So thank you very much indeed for that. In terms of the I'd also like to recognise within the team of people that are actually sort of delivering these games. So this is the Australian International Military Games. It's the organisation, it's the business. So I'd like to sort of just call out the board. So Peter Lay and the other board members that are here, Mark Binskin, Brian Thorburn, Glenn Keys, I think it's pretty much all of you. But without your support, we wouldn't have got to where we have done. So I'm really grateful for all the support you give us each and every day to help us get to where we need to get to. So thank you. The ambassadors, who are not all here, but mostly here. So Brendan Nelson, absolutely amazing. Anna Mears, Curtis McGrath, Ian Thorpe, who I remember pigeonholing a long, long time ago in Orlando, and he's still with us. So it's just brilliant. Thank you for that. And Lisa Kwok. You know, without the support of our ambassadors, you know, really we wouldn't get the profile that we get. So you play such an important role. And I'd also like to call out, you know, my team, our team, you know, the team that will deliver the games, which is now almost 90 people strong. They are a fantastically dedicated and talented collection of people, and they do brilliant work with not very much. And I think that they will put on for Australia an amazing games in Sydney, and so we should be very proud of them. So I'm hugely grateful to them for the work that they do. And I'd also want to call out, because there's a few of them here, their families, you know, the families of our team, who again have given up so much to help people get to where they've got to. So it's a team effort in its very broadest sense. So thank you very much indeed from me to you all for the work that you do. I just want to give you a sense of confidence. Everything's on track. It's all good. Plans are coming together nicely. The opening and closing ceremonies are looking fantastic. So I'm not going to tell you who's turning up. I'm not going to tell you what the talent is, but it's looking really good. We've got some. We had the participating nations out last week in Sydney, so that was 18 different nations that came. They had an excellent time, absolutely infused, really encouraged by what they're seeing. So that's all looking really good. We've almost raised enough money. We've got to sell some more tickets. So whatever you can do with the communities of people that you can influence, please sell those tickets, because that's important to us. But we're almost there. So I'm looking at this, and I have a great sense of confidence that, you know, the games that we're going to stage is going to be absolutely fantastic for those people taking part, the competitors and their family and friends, but it's also going to be something that will showcase Australia across a global stage, and that's just a brilliant place to be. As we go into the next 100 days, it's all about building awareness. It's about getting Australia excited about where we're going to. And we've been running a really good campaign over the last 3 months called Make Your Mark. And this has been encouraging different organisations to do something that shows their support for the people that serve in their nation's defence forces, but also for the games when they come around. So that's been working really well. As we go into the last month, there'll be something called Raise the Flag, and this very much is the start of Raise the Flag. You know, it's the staging of that banner is something that will showcase these games to all of Australia on national memorials, national institutions. And what we hope is that in that last month, as much and as many organisations, as many places, as many car windows, as many windows have got a sticker that showcase somebody's support for the games. And it's as simple as just showing the flag, the brand, the Invictus brand, and showing that in some tangible way. You know, that for us is success. And if you can imagine, for the team from Afghanistan, when they arrive on that plane and they drive through the streets of Sydney, and wherever they look, they can see flags of Invictus and Invictus stuff going on, and they feel like they're being embraced by this country. You know, that for us is success. So that's what we're trying to encourage people to do. So whatever you can do to help push that within your communities, that would be great. The 17th of August, we have the Harbour Bridge climb. So we have a number of opportunities to go across the Harbour Bridge, whether or not you want to or not, doesn't matter. But we need you to buy your tickets. We need to go over the bridge. So that, again, is important to us. And that's the launch of Fly the Flag. And the New South Wales government, come the time of the Games, have agreed to fly the Invictus Games flag on top of the bridge for 7 days throughout the duration of the Games. And that's an amazing thing, because it's like really hard to fly a flag on the Harbour Bridge, we've learned. I'm hoping they're going to pay for the flag, so it's good. So as we sort of, you know, today what I wanted to do was to just give you that update, but I also wanted to sort of just think forward a little bit. You know, we put all this time and effort into creating this community, this family of people, this immense goodwill, this excitement about what the Games are going to be. And I suppose the question I always ask myself is, what happens next? What happens after the Games? And what's going to be different as a result of all this time and effort that's there? And what we see in this room is this incredible goodwill, this energy that people want to put into trying to make sure that something is better that follows from what was there before. And so what I'd like to do now is to invite some people up onto the stage just to have a conversation about what that might be. Because really, the challenge that I think we all have is about what next. Not about what we've done in the past, it's about what's going to be there in the future. So I'd like to invite onto the stage, please, Curtis McGrath, who you all know very well, Gwen Cherne, who some of you might not know quite so well, and Minister Chester. Thank you very much. Now, I don't know if the mics work. I'm hopeful they do. I haven't done this before. I've never hosted a panel before, so you just got to bear with me. I've got some questions. So what I'd like to do is to just really set our minds in terms of the games have been conducted, and it's about what happens on the day the games are closed. And what is it that we need to be focused on in terms of trying to make sure that we use all of this energy and we turn it into something positive. So if I might go to Curtis first. I mean, Curtis is a semi-retired competitor, pretty much a full-time professional athlete. He's about to go and compete in the Worlds in a couple of months' time, slightly less than that. So he's absolutely invested, but he's done 3 Invictus Games. He's served, obviously, for many, many years with great distinction in our military. And I suppose the question I'd ask you, Curtis, is with all that experience and having seen what you've seen, having spoken to the people you've spoken to, what does it look like? What does success look like from a competitor's perspective in terms of when the games close, what needs to be put in place to help promote sport as a vehicle for recovery and rehabilitation?
I think the games themselves are a great example of what is possible and what can be achieved with the support of the communities around them and the people and supporting the friends and family that support the athletes as well. I think that's one thing that I really, really enjoy about the Invictus Games, because the friends and family are there every step of the way through the rehabilitation process, taking these people to rehab, to physio. The nurses, the doctors are all part of this family that help bring up these people and help them recover. And I think having that recognition at the Games is really important, but a flow-on effect, understanding that these people are behind them, don't forget about them. They are the ones that help our athletes and our veterans go through the hard times, pushing through the physios, the long days, because the first time I was put into a wheelchair, I was just healed my left hand. It had been severely injured, and that was when I realised that I was now a disabled person. And the person who made me go to physio that day was my partner, and also the physio. The physio was there on that emotional roller coaster, and they are the ones that really help make us push on and make us realise that what is in front of us is so amazing. And I think that having the opportunities to get to the next Invictus Games or the next competition is something that we cannot forget about, because at the time when you're in that moment of competition, it is all focus, it is all intense, and it is very distracting. Not distracting, but you're focused on this one event and then it's all over. And if we can continue to keep that motivation behind the competitors and their family and friends and the people that support them, it'll make the post-games blues, as we talk about, and that can be somewhat of a very depressing time. It can be something hard to come out of, and if we can make sure that these people are continuing on with their healthy lifestyle and also remembering that the people around them are trying to motivate them as well, because it's important that they are all supported through that whole process.
Thank you, Curtis. I've just realised I'm absolutely awful as a panel host because there's an empty seat. Where's Sue French gone? I'm terribly sorry. I'd just like to invite Sue French, who is running an amazing... an amazing programme to educate the children of New South Wales, but also across Australia, who's going to talk about that in just a second. That's good. That all now makes sense. That's brilliant. Bloody hell. Well, very good. Very good. So picking up on that theme, Gwen. So I'm going to ask Gwen to introduce herself because her own story is extraordinary. She's actually joined today by her son Thomas, who has just joined 3RAR in Townsville. So she's very much a representative. Brilliant. very much a representative of families. She's an ambassador for Clubs New South Wales. She has a completely unique story. But the question I've discussed with Gwen many times before is, you know, we spend a lot of time and effort focused upon the competitors, the people who've served, the people who've been injured, but we don't spend a great deal of time necessarily thinking about the families. And there was a great line that was made in Toronto by a guy called David Wiseman, who said to, you know, talk to a symposium a little bit like this, and he described how his wife asked him a question, which was, when's it going to be our turn? You know, when does the focus come on to us as the families? And so I'd be interested, Gwen, just to sort of get your thoughts around what that looks like and as you go forward.
It's a really interesting question. Thank you, Curtis, for what you said. I was a carer, as was my son Tom, and we had 2 little children. My husband committed suicide, for those of you who don't know, in February of last year, and I've been working tirelessly for widows, families, and survivors since then, and have been welcomed and encouraged by both Departments of Veterans Affairs and Defence, and I'm grateful for that. It's an interesting thing because to be a part of Invictus, it's the one time where I feel like we're not forgotten. We're not always tacked on. We're actually a part of it. We're included, we're incorporated, we're remembered, we're honoured and acknowledged, which really does not occur in many places outside of this space. And so I'm really grateful to hear more and more people talk about the families. I was on a panel yesterday, and they were talking about veteran employment, and they completely forgot to talk about the families and the spouses who travel around this country and support our serving men and women who are able to do their jobs on the backs of their family with our love and support. But only because of that are they able to go away, to be as flexible with their schedules, to not have to do drop-offs and pickups. And that actually creates a very difficult career path and sense of self for the people who are standing behind our athletes and our serving men and women. It's how do you redefine yourself? Who are you? I am still me. I am not just a widow. And I was an incredibly successful professional before I became a widow. And how do I make sure that that path is honoured and acknowledged and supported within the Australian community? And I think right now we have all of these ESOs coming around and doing all of this work. And Invictus has been fantastic in really harnessing that and drawing attention to it, raising the profile of the sacrifices that our serving men and women and their families, especially our children, make every day for our country. And yet I wonder what we can do as a government, as Department of Veterans Affairs, as Defence, to say to our serving men and women who go off and start their own ESOs, who participate as members of the RSLs around this country, how can you work together to not only continue that collaboration that you have started here with Invictus that's been spurred on and encouraged, but also how do you not forget these families afterward? And I would ask that they're continuously, this is a conversation that every time we talk about our serving men and women, we talk about their families as well. And then we look to the ESOs and constantly call them to task. Are you working together? Are you spreading the word? Are you saying this is where our services stop and these are where yours begin?
Thanks, Gwen. Brilliant. Sue.
Yes, Patrick.
I'm going to ask you
yes.
to talk a little bit about the work you're doing with the education program, but then also then just to sort of think about what does it mean when you look at it through an education lens, and what does Invictus provide for us as an opportunity to help raise awareness about service and about the role of the military within our communities?
Yeah. Well, we've been working, I've got a small team, there are 4 of us working on an education project that will actually be available to all students across Australia through the New South Wales Department of Education. It consists of 4 parts. The first is a lead up to the Games, where we're developing curriculum materials for students and teachers to use around the central themes of Invictus, what it is, what it means to serve. You know, it's something that young people, our high school students in particular, don't spend a lot of time thinking about. It's something about building community when you start to think about what is it to serve. Themes of resilience, mental health, adaptive environments. So those things will come in the lead up. What it will do is it will raise the awareness of students throughout the country of the Games, but it will also prepare the 11,500 students and teachers that we expect to come to the Games as part of the education program. Our education program at the Games has two parts. One part is our students who will come, about 11,500 of them, from about 300 schools across New South Wales. So our idea was to get a message out across all of New South Wales rather than just you can bring 1,000 kids. And those students will do some workshops. The University of New South Wales is involved in some of those workshops, Wheelchair Sports New South Wales, a whole lot of community organisations, again to give the students a real experience that is an educational experience. And of course they're going to have the great privilege of watching the Games. We hope to be able to do virtual excursions so that students through YouTube across the whole country will have access and will be able to participate in that way. And then after the Games, we will be using footage and the alliances and friendships that we create to build what we call the legacy items. So large teaching curriculum materials that connect to the real world that we would hope will be used in schools for the next 5, 6, 7 years. So that's what it looks like.
Which I think is fantastically exciting in terms of not only its ability to reach out and touch school children within New South Wales, but also to get across Australia. Yeah. And to provide something that is not just run this year, but actually runs next year and the year after that.
Yeah, that was one of our big issues, was that, you know, with this is a unique event. This is unique in a way that the Olympic Games is not, because it is about community. It's not about winning and losing, it's about community and how communities can support each other and ought to support each other. And in some ways, what you see, you know, I've spent a long time as a principal, what you see is a fragmentation of community. And I think one of our really important roles is to build community, because that keeps us all safe.
Minister, it's the 27th of October.
Don't waste your time on the question, I won't answer it anyway.
I think you can answer any question you like, Minister. It's the 27th of October. You've just held your meeting with the various state Veterans Affairs ministers. What do you think your call to action might be at the end of that session?
Well, thank you. And how long have I got? First of all, I want to recognise the Chief of Defence Force, Angus, and invite you to look across your left shoulder at the former Chief. 4 years ago, he had jet black hair. that is your future, my friend. Thank you, Patrick. I was in actually London last week, and we met with the Invictus team over there as well, and they're very excited about coming here. And in the time it took me to fly back, they lost 3 cabinet ministers, so I'm not sure what I did. But I've got to get back to the office pretty soon because I understand the whole entire English soccer team is seeking refuge in Australia. So this is, we've all talked about it, it is an extraordinary opportunity. I guess as a politician, it took me about 7 years in the job to acknowledge I was a politician. It feels like, you know, you deny it for your whole life. I said, no, you've been elected 3 times. You have to acknowledge you're a politician now. But Brendan would know, there's very few opportunities in your political career when your issue is the issue in the Australian people's minds. So the Invictus opportunity is about when the Duke and Duchess are here, Meghan and Harry are in town, the whole world's media is going to be looking at Australia. They're going to be looking at Invictus. The Australian people are going to be looking at it, and they're going to, for some of them, for the first time, get an understanding about the things you talked about, Sue, about service, about the things that Gwen talked about, how there's families supporting these servicemen and women, and the things that you talked about as well, Kurt, about the challenge of persistence. And because the issue is going to be the issue, we've got to make the most of that opportunity. It's an extraordinary opportunity when your issue is the issue of the day for all the week. And then the media caravan will move on to something else. Our challenge is to make sure that it doesn't just move on to something else. I singled out Angus here for a reason. Having the chief here is important because the conversation we need to have with the Australian people is veterans and caring for veterans is not Liz Cosson's responsibility as the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. It's not my responsibility alone as a minister. It's our shared responsibility. And helping the community understand that our corporates, and thank you so much for your support, that our corporates are critical to making sure our veterans are well respected when they leave the Defence Force and have new opportunities in employment is an important legacy from Invictus. Helping the community understand that they walk amongst us. The veterans walk amongst us every day. You won't necessarily be able to recognise them, but they walk amongst us every day. Their families are amongst us. And we have an obligation as members of the community to support veterans as well. So it's that sacred bond that formed 100 years ago when the old Repatriation Commission was formed after World War I, that carries through to today as we try to reform DVA to make it relevant and make sure it's meeting the needs of younger veterans. It's making the community understand that they can play a role on a daily basis in supporting veterans and their families in partnership with the government, in partnership with the ex-service organisations, in partnership with the Australian Defence Force. So I think there's a lot of things there, Patrick, but I think it's a rare opportunity for us. By your attendance here today, you're indicating you're up for the challenge. I mean, I just can't wait to see the athletes in action, but my opportunity is behind the scenes with the other ministers from other nations and talking about how we can share ideas, how we can do a better job of caring for our veterans and their families going forward. So I think it's an extraordinary opportunity, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Minister. Brilliant. We have a little bit of time.
Did I answer your question?
I've written some points down. That's good. It's nice. There's a little bit of time for some questions. Are there any out there, potentially? Someone wish to pose a question?
We've actually had one come in from Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, which has
How does that happen? Annabelle, please.
One for Curtis. So a big fan of yours who's interested in why you didn't apply for the team and to understand your journey and that decision making.
So, like PK said, that I've competed in 3 Invictus Games and managed to gain a lot of benefit and understanding about how sport has helped me get to where I am and how it keeps me focused and giving me a purpose and also keeping me connected with the defence community. And I'm very lucky that I've had great success in my sport and been able to travel all over the world and compete at the Paralympic Games and 3 Invictus Games. And I thought that the Games coming to Australia is huge for Australia and for our veterans and our friends and family that support them. And I have had the privilege of being able to benefit from these games when they have been overseas. And when I compete in the Paralympics and at my World Championships, I take a little bit of that Invictus with me, and I feel that I get that opportunity to compete for my country probably twice a year away from the Invictus Games. And I felt that I had benefited as much as I could from the Invictus Games, but it's also taught me a lot, and I felt that someone else could take my spot and have that opportunity to benefit as much as I have. And like I was saying before about the family and friends that get to benefit as well, because every veteran that comes and competes at these games gets to bring 2 family or friends with them, and that's another 2 people that get to benefit. So I felt that I'd sort of had my opportunity and capitalised on that, and I've also continued to have my opportunities heading overseas in a couple of weeks to go to my World Championship. So good luck to that person who's taken my spot.
Yeah, nice. Brilliant.
Oh, dear. They gave me a microphone. Gwen and Curtis, First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude for your service to this wonderful country. Gwen, I know you haven't worn a uniform, but as I'm a military spouse of many years, I can only look you in the heart and call you a sister. And Curtis, I know your families love you. And my conversation with PK, as I started a foundation in Canada, especially for children of veterans and those that serve our countries, I will do whatever I can to help your children here in Australia with what we can do as partners here. And I love both of you. And I know Australia, if they were all in this room, would say, I love you too. Thank you so much for your service. And you are forever in my heart. Thank you so much.
That's Faye. Thank you, Faye. That's perfect. Such a creative person, Faye. She's going to, hopefully, we're going to create this amazing book, which Faye's going to write. So it'll be brilliant, but wonderful. Time for one more, maybe. Anyone else?
One more that's come through. From a corporate perspective. Gwen, we touched on this as well. From organisations that look to want to employ veterans, sometimes it's where do I begin? And, you know, the journey, not necessarily understanding from a corporate perspective, maybe the journey that a veteran or a serving member may have been on. How can maybe these organisations start? Where do they begin?
If I may, I listened to Adrian Talbot. I listened to Garth Callender and Michelle Mosey from With You With Me on a panel, and they all spoke very eloquently about veteran employment. And what I gathered from discussions with them was that there are veterans in your ranks already. There are people who you employ. They walk among us. Their families walk among us. And I would say start there. And then the second place I would start, I think CEOs probably understand all of the assets, the resilience, the skill sets that veterans bring to employment. But the HR managers and the middle management don't always. They oftentimes disregard those and think they're not able to critically think. They are too used to taking orders and doing what they're told. And I think what I would say to that is, one, give them that chance, and two, mentor them. Figure out how to, have senior leaders in your organizations mentor our veterans to transition into that corporate environment, and then watch them flourish. Because even though mental health is a massive issue, and even though many of our veterans are suffering with that, so is the rest of the population. And just because someone is suffering in some way in their own time does not mean that they aren't resilient and aren't incredibly capable or incredibly successful, to be frank, in their work and their career environment. So that's probably what I would say to that.
Just to add to that, Gwen, and it's critically important during the Invictus period that we do tell that positive story about the employability and the transferability of a veteran's skills from the Australian Defence Force into civilian life. Now, Mark Donaldson, VC, spoke at the Prime Minister's Veterans Employment Awards this year, and he made a very simple point to the corporates that veterans will be good for your business. This is not an act of charity to employ a veteran. Actually, they'll be good for your business. Gwen just touched on it, the skills, the discipline, the resilience, the work ethic, the value system they bring to the workplace will be good for your business. And we need to sell that message to the Australian corporate sector as much as we possibly can. Notwithstanding, there are going to be some people who need additional support, just like there's many other people in the community who need some additional support from time to time. Our veterans have served our nation, and again, we have that sacred obligation as a grateful nation to help them make that transition. But we need to do it positively and recognise that veterans can make an enormous difference in corporate world, in the communities as well. I think that's another one of those opportunities that comes out of Invictus.
Thank you, Minister. So I think we'll just close it. One final question, I think, for each of you. Games time, from your respective perspectives, what will be the one thing that will be the most impactful? Curtis.
I think everyone will look at Meghan Markle, firstly.
That's good.
Harry? Yeah. Oh, Harry.
All right, moving on.
No. I think identifying that perspective will be front and centre. You know, these people have been through, and myself included, have been through a lot and come out the other side stronger and unconquered. So it'll be definitely one of those things that will be highlighted there.
Sue.
It's really hard to know what's going on here. You know, what I really want is I want the students that we work with through this process to come away with a deep well of admiration for our servicemen and women, but also with a strong view that they are the ones who have control of their lives, nobody else. And that's a big lesson for a young person to learn.
Minister.
Well, I've got very high expectations from the event, but I guess the one thing I'd like the Australian people to take out of it is a greater sense of understanding and respect, respecting the service, the sacrifice, but understanding the men and women who serve and their families. And I think if we achieve that and we carry that forward from Invictus onwards, I think it'll be a great thing for us.
Gwen.
I've never got one thing. I've got three. I would say acknowledgement, like you said, of our serving men and women and their families. And acknowledgement that we're all a part of this community. And that would be my second thing, that the Australian community embrace our veterans and our serving men and women and their families and hold them up. And then I think hope, because every one of these athletes and every one of your carers and loved ones bring us hope. So I hope that spreads out, because we could use a little bit of that right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just would ask you to join me to show our appreciation to a fantastic panel. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry, Sue. I can't believe I've left you behind. It's terrible.
It's not a problem.
That's pretty much the formalities done. I mean, I'm just going to invite Mark Edel, who is there, just to come up and offer a vote of thanks, I think.
Thanks, PK. I'm Mark Edel. I'm from Jaguar Land Rover Australia. Really, I think what we've been listening to and hearing a lot of this morning is about family. Is about everybody working together and supporting each other. And on behalf of the Invictus Games 2018 family that I'm very privileged to have been involved with from the announcement in November 2016, I'd like to thank Brendan, PK, Gwen, Sue, Curtis and the Minister for sharing the insights that they have with us today. As an aside, I was lucky enough to be at a lunch on Tuesday where Gwen spoke, and you really make me feel very humble, Gwen. I was on the phone to my wife as soon as I left the car park saying, you should have heard this lady that I heard speak today. So thank you for your words today. On behalf of everyone at Jaguar Land Rover, can I express our pride once again at being the presenting partner for the 2018 Invictus Games here in Sydney in 100 days' time. And with today marking 100 days to go until the Invictus Games, and as the excitement builds, we're delighted to show our support to many of the competing nations, including Team Australia this year. And this year there are 72 Australian members of the team who have shown remarkable commitment to their country, their community and our society. They bear the scars of sacrifices made in our name, and we give thanks for what they gave, but also for something more, for their refusal to allow their service to end there. We salute them and all their comrades, friends, families and professionals who have helped them on their Invictus journey. At Jaguar Land Rover, we believe there are many synergies between the Invictus Games and our own brand values, and together we've been inspired by the huge impact the Games continue to have on the rehabilitation of our wounded warriors. We're honoured to have over 800 ex-service men and women work for our business globally, and we are delighted to pledge our continued support to military recruitment here in Australia. Invictus Games 2018 promises to inspire and challenge us all to become better tomorrow than we are today. Thank you, get it the right way around. Look, we're honoured to host the first medal ceremony at the Games, which will be the Jaguar Land Rover Driving Challenge on Saturday the 20th of October, which will signal the start of the competition. So on behalf of Jaguar Land Rover, I'd like to wish all our competitors the very best of luck in their preparations over the coming 100 days and encourage all Australians to show their support for our wounded warriors and get behind the Games. Together, we are proud to be a partner in this journey and we'll be with you every step of the way. Thank you.
And I just want to introduce Chris Pittman to come up and say a few words on behalf of the team.
Thanks, PK. On behalf of Team Australia, I'd like to thank our partners, the combined ADF and RSL, and most importantly, our friends and our family for this opportunity. It's a remarkable opportunity we've been given, not just to represent our country, but to do so on our own home soil. And because of our unconquered soul, we won't let you down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris and Patrick. Look, by way of conclusion, I should also say to you that in the entrance to the War Memorial, in the foyer, or orientation gallery they call it, we will have in the lead up to Invictus a small display representing the Invictus Games. We'll have Pete Rudland's medal and his story and several others. Our biggest problem here is lack of space, and Dan Kieran, VC, recently asked me why, having commissioned a portrait of him, as we do with our VC recipients, we weren't hanging it. And I said, well, unless you want it opposite the men's toilet on the lower ground floor, we can't put it up. But what we will do at Poppy's, our cafe restaurant, which is named in honour of Trooper David Poppy Pierce, who was killed in 2008 in Afghanistan, 2007 I should say. We have a magnificent image of 3RAR in theatre, we have Navy and Air Force, and there is one space left, and I will dedicate that to a photograph of the Invictus team 2018, and that will go up there until the next Invictus team comes. We also have another area, I call it the pool room, but in the exit corridor we actually have a photograph of Prince Harry here and William and Kate, and people stand over there and have selfies of themselves in front of the photos, so go figure. But please don't report that back until after Invictus. But what we can do is perhaps replace some of those with some Invictus images. And here in early October, when Special Forces goes out, the next exhibition is called After the War. What happens when the war ends? What are the human, what are the social consequences? And a part of that exhibition is Invictus. And the other thing that I would certainly like to do beyond Curtis' story down in the Middle East galleries here is to have an Invictus space. I have learned many things, but one of the things I have learned, it's critically important that your stories are told, that they're told here and they're told now. Not decades afterwards, but now. And part of that story is what you are doing in Invictus. Not just you, but as Gwen said, you and your families. And that is a part of the story. And one of the other things that I can also do, as we did for Coral Balmoral, as we did for Peacekeepers, is for a period of time, not long after Invictus, is to take all of those images down in the entrance corridor, magnificent images of Australians, different eras and theatres and so on, and put up for a period of time, 2 or 3 weeks, images that come out of the Invictus Games. not just you, Gary, hopefully winning a medal or something, but of you and your families in different contexts of Invictus, to proudly say to Australians, we're damn proud of these people, we're proud of what they've done, we're proud of the families who love and support them, and all of the people in the community, as Sue said, that made this possible. So that is something in our way we can do to provide support and recognition to you. Thank you very, very much. Oh, the last thing is, as you know, I'm trying to use creative ways to bring your story to life. I never thought I'd have the War Memorial in this business, but we are producing an album. If those of you familiar with Spirit of the Anzacs, that album in 2015, Lee Kernigan and friends, we are actually producing an album called After the War. Invictus, I won't say any more, Invictus is going to be a very big part of this. We also have a magnificent song that Garth Porter has written called After the War, Will You Still Know Me? I won't sing it to you, I'll spare you that. But I am looking for an image, a photograph of a man and a woman after the war, which might tell a story. So if there are any volunteers that have an image or are prepared to have a photograph taken, I'm thinking of you, Lisa. And if anyway, we're looking for something which depicts after the war. So anyway, enjoy the rest of the day. And Greg, there are some tour guides outside for those who would like a tour of the War Memorial. And by the way, thanks to the former Chief of Army, now Chief of Defence, we have a program here called Soldiers in Residence. I said to General Morrison when he was Chief of Army, I said, look, we've got the family jewels, you've got some people that are struggling. So the soldiers come through in uniform, they're here for 3 weeks, and on their very last day, one of our historians moderates a Q&A with them here to an audience of predominantly our staff. Today's will be at 12:30. Bring a box of tissues, and it's courage comes in different forms. At 12:30 there will be another manifestation of courage by these young Australians, and so everyone is welcome to be here if they wish to at 12:30 to hear the Q&A and the revelation of stories of 3 young Australians who have served our country in recent decade or so. So thank you. As you were, carry on, disperse.